Oh, I think it is important for several reasons. Analytically, the main point is probably, again, that it shows us the role and significance of institutional systems and how the way that political and administrative systems are set up under normal circumstances will determine to a very large extent how these systems behave during times of a crisis. So what we see in Sweden, for instance, is that the autonomy of the public health authority, the autonomy of the regions, and also that of local authorities had a major impact on how the system was governed and what the system could do, and also what it could not do. I've been making the point during the lecture that sometimes the negotiated arrangements and agreements among institutions is more resilient and is more sustainable, and is probably also better because it brings everyone on board. Whereas if you have institutional systems where there's a stricter hierarchy, you may technically get institutions at a lower level to do what you want them to do, but they will not be as involved in that project. They will not feel that they're necessarily part of it. I think the core argument here is that we might want to think a bit more about whether or not there should be sort of two sorts of policy signaling. You know, one during normal circumstances, one during crises. I think that one of the problems we see in Sweden is that Sweden has had problems fully sort of accepting the fact that these are extraordinary times and we need to employ measures and we need to do things differently than we usually do. So this I guess it sort of shows the pros and cons of how public institutions behave. They tend to be really good at things that fall within their sort of routine day of sort of going about their business. But when they're confronted with unexpected crises and they have to improvise, you know, standing on their feet, so to speak, they run into severe difficulties. Another thing about Sweden is also the relative absence of political interference. I want to bring that up. We often think of politicization as something inherently bad. I'm not fully convinced about the strength of that argument. I think that sometimes political leadership can be essential actually to get institutions to really change their course of action when you head into a sort of major crisis. I think that there are certainly similarities here. The 2015-2016 crisis saw the National Migration Agency to work under its autonomy to deal with issues that were sort of, to some extent, sort of shielded from the political discourse. And so the decisions made were driven by the law, by the asylum conventions, and so on and so forth. And the matters did not become very politicized. I think there's a difference here between Sweden and many other European countries where the political level would step in when the number of asylum seekers increased rapidly. And we did not see that same thing in Sweden. That did not prevent public opinion from becoming more articulated in Sweden after the 2015-2016 crisis, and it certainly was more articulated. But at least for the short-term management of that crisis, I think it sort of worked out probably somewhat better than if you have a more strict political interference.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.